Ready? Good evening. This is the Town of New Canaan Police Commission regular meeting of February 19, 2025. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, January 15th, 2025. Any additions on that?
None here.
The date,
Just the date on both of these, right here.
right, the date on it, I think is November 24. Just the dates wrong. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
on the top and then a second under the minutes of the previous meeting. If you could just correct that, that'd be great. Okay, any other additions?
No,
Or motion to approve,
So moved.
second,
second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Topics for discussion. Let's discuss stolen vehicle updates. Lieutenant?
Thank you, Commissioner, for inviting us tonight. Sergeant Sprostos here with me tonight, both in the Detective Bureau. Detective Patton, Detective Sergeant Condos, and Sergeant O'Sullivan are also diligently working on this stolen vehicles on a daily basis. So that's our team up in the Detective Bureau, along with all the guys in the Patrol Division, are trying our best to curtail this. As the chief, I think, has mentioned in previous meetings, there was about 17 stolen vehicles reported in 2023. And in 2024, we did see an uptick in that amount of stolen vehicles. And in 2025, so far, we've had 2 stolen vehicles. And this raises a little bit more of a concern because these 2 happened during the daylight hours. One from a driveway and one from a public road in town. Most of the cars were being stolen predominantly in the late evening, overnight hours, keys left in vehicle, unlocked from driveways. And then we have seen an uptick in the daytime. Of the 38 stolen motor vehicles in 2024, we did recover 21 of those for the victims. And out of that 21, we processed 12 of those vehicles, meaning lifted DNA prints to gain trace evidence, physical evidence to identify suspects and make arrests. There are also 5 of those vehicles that were recovered by other jurisdictions, and arrests were subsequently made because there was someone in the vehicle when they stopped the car. They were able to stop and apprehend the suspects. Right now, we have 1 active arrest warrant. Sergeant Condos prepared for larceny 1 for a stolen vehicle. So that's an active, we're still looking for the suspect. We did make an arrest on a juvenile. That goes to juvenile court, so that doesn't render a lot of attention in the media. And we also solved a 2022 case this past year on a subsequent DNA hit that we lifted at the scene in 2022. So sometimes it takes a little bit of lengthier time with the DNA to get the results back. So it's not immediate. I just want to cover some things so the public does know like what our procedures are and what we are doing. So if a vehicle is stolen, the patrol officers are the first ones to make contact with the victim and the family. And they take all the initial information and immediately put it out over our radio channels and also the statewide hotlines. So area jurisdictions can start being on the lookout for the car. The victim also fills out a stolen vehicle form, and then that's immediately put into the NCIC database so that any LPR camera in the area or any police officer on the road throughout the state, if they run that plate, they know the vehicle's stolen. So we do that immediately. We start to develop the suspect right off the bat. Physical description, what they were wearing, what car they might have came in, how they left, what direction of travel they went, and the patrol officers on patrol in those sectors, they head to that area, which happened recently with one of the officers tried to stop one of the stolen vehicles, was in the area, did her best, but unfortunately left at a high rate of speed. We rely a lot on video surveillance and the tracking systems of some of the cars. Some of the higher end cars do have a tracking system. So we try to contact the manufacturer as soon as we can to get them on board with the tracking. One of the biggest assets to us has been our flock cameras. We have 10 of them, as you know, we're getting more. Those are strategically placed around town based on our previous investigations. So we could immediately search those. A detective in the office could get right on the computer and put the victim's license plate in, and within minutes, we could tell if they left through one of the major roadways. And also, yep.
If that's put into the system, then is that just our system, or does that go statewide on that system?
The stolen vehicle is entered into NCIC, which is the statewide system. And then it's also entered into our flock LPR system, which is how we're searching for it prior to it leaving town. Or we know it left town because it went up 123, hit the LPR, and then had to continue out of town. So at that point, the detectives get involved. And we do what's called a convoy analysis. It's a part of the flock system where we could identify the vehicle when it's leaving the scene, and we could trace cars that either followed it out of town or possibly followed it back to the residence prior to stealing the car. So that's a good development with a flock system. And then we also create a custom hot list within flock so that other area jurisdictions that do have the flock network have that on their hot list also. We're finding that when they come to town, it's sometimes in a vehicle that possibly is stolen, that hasn't been reported stolen by another victim, or a rental car, or just some other car that's associated with the suspects. But they are coming to town in groups. So, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 people in one car, and they just get out until they find keys left in the vehicle, unlocked, and take the car. One of the biggest things we do behind the scenes that we don't publicize a lot is our networking with other agencies. So on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis, we're meeting with detectives from our bordering jurisdictions, Darien, Greenwich, Stamford, the bigger cities, the smaller towns, bordering Westchester County. We've developed a relationship with them, even some of the federal partners, to try to help recover these cars. We also have other social media platforms that we use that we could communicate, basically like a text message between other detectives. Actually, I just got a text message from Detective Patton. He's off right now, but he just posted some information we had. So it's a live chat that we have amongst a lot of the area detectives, since we can't meet, every day. But that's a good way for us to communicate. When we recover the vehicle, sometimes you'll read that it's been abandoned in another jurisdiction. Sometimes it has been abandoned in New Canaan, but most of the time it's out of town. At that point, we determine whether that jurisdiction, if they made an arrest, processes it, or we do for DNA, latent fingerprints. So the vehicles are processed. If it's been about a month or a longer time, it's hard to process the vehicle because it's hard to determine who actually stole it in New Canaan, and then it's been driving around the state for 30 days. So it could have had several people driving the car. So that is a challenge to our investigation. We are looking for trace evidence, though, and physical evidence, predominantly fingerprints and DNA within the driver compartment to put the person at the wheel. And Sergeant Spross is actually one of our computer investigators. One of the things that we're looking into now is recovering cell phones within the cars, or even the onboard computer systems of the vehicle, to see if suspects have gone into that database with their phone through Wi-Fi, and that takes a lot of extra work, search warrants and things of that nature. But that's also what we're focusing in on. The suspects, obviously, these are not kids from New Canaan playing pranks. these are, some juveniles and also associated with adults, meaning over the age of 18 from out of town, larger cities to the north of us. And they're working together. They're coming, they're coming down in these cars and they're working together. One thing too, that we always notify the public, they are armed. We know that they're armed with firearms. They are dangerous. They will confront you. So safety first for all our residents. If your car is being stolen, basically let them have it. Don't start fighting them. The keys are in the car. Don't confront them. Be a good witness for us. Use your iPhone if you can, get some photos, get the best details you can so we could effect a proper investigation and bring it to an arrest. Investigative leads, we don't stay in the office routinely. We're out and about. So we've been up to Hartford. Last week we were down in Brooklyn trying to follow a lead, Waterbury and up the coastline in Connecticut. And like I said, daily and weekly meetings with various jurisdictions, and that's how we're going to work together to curtail this. But with that being said, we have a victim-centered priority, so we're focused on the victims. First of all, paramount is their safety. Meeting with them, we meet with the victim continuously throughout the process, updating them on our status of the case. And routine communication. It's good to explain to them the process because the car was stolen within 15 seconds. It's definitely not going to take us that short of a time to get the car back and to make an arrest. So that's one thing to explain to them. But also want to stress that we need the public's help to lock your car, take your key fob in the house with you. Especially at night, but even during the day, if you're in town, out doing errands, a quick shopping on Elm Street, lock the car, take the keys with you. As the springtime's approaching now, don't leave the valuables, in plain view, purses, pocketbooks, anything other than that. Secure them in the glove compartments or the center console or even the trunk out of view. At night, recommend if you have a garage, try to use it. And just because there's a house with a gate or a fence, they're going to jump the fence, or just because you have a fence or a gate, it's not going to prevent the car from being stolen. Set your alarms. Motion lighting is always good. And one other thing is, social media is huge. It's a good thing to communicate with family, but just want to make everyone aware that just because you're posting something on social media, the suspects aren't monitoring social media to see where you are on vacation, posting photos, your cars are left home. So, and once again, don't approach these guys. Just, let us do our thing.
Would you explain to the public our pursuit policy? I think there's some misconceptions out there that, they say, hey, well,
So
why didn't you?
I can take that.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to reiterate what Lieutenant DeFelice was saying that, I wanted him here tonight to explain that although it may appear because we can't pursue vehicles, some perception may be that that's it. We just kind of walk away from the case. That's not true. Clearly, what he's explained is that's the very beginning of the investigation, and these officers take pride in that and work diligently and work tirelessly to try to find and recover the stolen property and apprehend who's responsible for this. They work very, very hard, and Lieutenant DeFelice is starting a task force with area agencies, because it's not just a New Canaan-centric problem. It's all over the area, not only in Connecticut, but New York and beyond. But as far as pursuit policy, we're mandated to follow the statewide pursuit policy, which dictates that we cannot pursue for misdemeanors, nonviolent misdemeanors, infractions, and property crimes. And it specifically says to include stolen vehicles. So, you know, the risk is too great. And quite honestly, if we start pursuing these stolen vehicles, people aren't going to get them back. They're going to crash and they're going to be totaled. And it's going to put everybody at great risk. So that's why we don't pursue. But just because we don't pursue doesn't mean we're not pursuing investigative leads. We're not going to physically pursue the car up the Merritt Parkway at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at 100 miles an hour. That's just not safe for anyone. And as we've seen, the culprits and the criminals have no regard for human safety. So they don't care. They will harm you. They will harm the public. They have no regard for public safety. So we have to take that into consideration when we attempt to stop them. And if they flee, we have to adhere to our pursuit policy. We don't have any wiggle room on that. But it's clear that our investigators and our officers that take these cases, take them very seriously, work very hard to try to apprehend these people and try to find these people. But at that point, it's after the fact. That's an investigation. What we keep reiterating to the public is the prevention aspect of it. And the single most effective way to prevent these from happening is to lock your vehicle and take your keys inside. It's just a fact. 99.9% of these stolen vehicles are because the keys are left inside of them. So we need the public's help. And quite honestly, these criminals are getting more and more bold. They're showing up in daytime. They're following people home. They see a car that they like, that they want to steal, that they have a market for in the aftermarket, in the black market. And they're following these people home. When they jump out of the car to go inside, then that's when they get attacked. So it's becoming very, very dangerous. And we had, you know, most of these a few years ago were overnight when everybody was asleep, but now it's grown into something that's much more dangerous, much more of a threat to our public safety. So we need the community's help. And we just ask people to please just take this bit of advice, lock your vehicles, take your keys in, and don't become a victim of this.
Another part of this that we talked about before the meeting was at a gas station. And what we've seen in a number of cases where you pull up to the gas station, you go to get out of your car, you start pumping up your gas, pumping up the car, and then you go in, sometimes go in to pay because the pump didn't read your credit card or something. The keys are in the car. People come by, grab the car and take off. So please, when you, it's dumb, but take the keys out of your car when you're gassing your car up, put them in your pocket, hold them in your hand, gas up the car, and then get back in it. We talked about gates. There's sort of this false sense of security with gates, right? You can't come into somebody's property with the gate. But as you said, they can climb over the walls. You leave the keys in the car. When you're driving out of your driveway, the gate's open. So, and we had that in Florida a month ago. Took both cars out of the driveway. So gas stations, gates, and we covered pursuit. Any other additions to that?
I just had two questions about specific cases.
Sure.
One was the vehicle that was stolen in daylight from the driveway, which was an expensive Lamborghini.
Yes.
And as I understand it, there was a lead that that vehicle may have been headed to the port in New Jersey. Was that ever recovered or arrest
The
made?
vehicle hasn't been recovered, not an arrest made, but we are still working with state, federal investigators on that. We did trace some leads down to Manhattan, to the Brooklyn area. And
Yeah.
still working on it.
And the other was,
And they are open investigations, so we have to be careful of
Yeah, okay.
how much information we pass along.
sure. The other one, and it's just an oddity, I don't know if you have any comment on it, is the vehicle that was stolen off of Elm Street, I guess. Was it Elm or Main?
Mhm.
And what strikes me as odd is that the car thief was just strolling around town looking for something to steal. I mean, that's highly unusual, it seems to me. Do we know?
That's not completely accurate, what you just said.
Okay.
Our investigation has revealed that they've come to town in another vehicle.
Oh, I see.
And what they're doing is, and quite frankly, like what Paul's saying, they look for a mistake. They look for you to leave your car unattended for that split 10 seconds and
Huh.
the keys are in it. So they're not following people for a long while. It's just driving around looking for a high-end car. And when the victim makes a slight mistake, they capitalize on it. It's done in split second, it was
Yep.
probably 10 seconds.
Oh.
So that's.
Thanks.
Yep.
And then again, to emphasize, this is not just a New Canaan issue. I mean, this is countrywide, actually. Certainly countywide, Westchester County and Jersey, et cetera. It's happening. So
There's a reason why they stopped coming in the past at night and to now in the daytime. Because Waterbury's anti-suppression and Meriden and New Britain's anti-suppression are out in the daytime. So they leave there to come down here where it's more fruitful.
And
I hate to
quite,
say that way, but it's.
it's true.
and quite frankly, I mean, they know there's expensive cars in these towns. So if you want to steal an expensive car, unfortunately, New Canaan has them. Just one thing also to touch on, as the chief mentioned, these are open investigations, so we're not going to comment on too much specifics, but the cases do take a while sometimes to come to a conclusion and make an arrest because we have to establish probable cause for the arrest warrant for search warrants. And a lot of that rests on the development of evidence such as DNA. DNA, if we do get a good sample, when we collect it, let's say tonight a car is stolen, we collect DNA tonight, and we send it to the state lab, and we did the proper collection of it, and we got a appropriate amount of sample to enter into the system, there is a profile that's generated, that's put into the system, but that individual might not, that suspect's DNA might not be confirmed for several years. So it is in the system. We're doing our job now, and maybe in 3 years from now, we get a match. So that's the delay. It's not that we're delaying it. It's just, that's the process. That's the scientific process. That's how it happens. So.
Great, thank you. Any other?
Our state representative, Tom O'Day, would like to say a few words. He's on Zoom here.
Tom?
Hi, sorry, everybody. I'm a little under the weather, but I've got an environment committee hearing going on that's on speaker 52 of 98. It's been going all day. And, but I wanted to jump on with you all. Forgive me for not being there in person, but know that, we've got a number of legislative issues we're trying to promote to address it. There's basically, as I'm sure the officers know, there's a handful of youth in Waterbury that are well known that basically attribute maybe 70-80% of the theft, and they're getting paid $500 a car, and they know youthful offenders are not prosecuted, so the gangs are hiring the youth to steal the cars. And so everything you said is completely accurate, officers. And I'm going to make it my mission to educate people. You need to lock your doors when you leave the house and you leave the car. Just click it. I was talking to the commissioner at the chair. I now automatically, I have my keys around my neck and I click it when I leave the car, so it automatically locks. And if I don't hear it, I click it again. It's now become habit. It's like a seatbelt. And the fact that people are still leaving their keys in the car is beyond my comprehension. It just makes no sense. Listen, I love our town, but come on, people. You can't leave your keys in the car. And I will try and do a better job of hammering that home. I don't understand how in 2025, when we know what's going on, we just had a car stolen with a dog in it. Lock your cars. So anyway, officers, please, if there's anything else from the Hartford standpoint, know that we've got a number of things that we're trying to put through on juvenile change, like charging, trying juveniles in the towns where they commit the crime rather than in their hometown. For example, if they're tried in Stanford as opposed to Waterbury, a Stanford jury may be a little more, let's say, have a little bit more of an issue with stealing cars in our towns than the Waterbury juries. We also proposed, because we know that a handful of juveniles are the ones responsible for most of the crimes, for the car theft, ankle bracelets. Now, I've used this example, and I use it on the floor of the house. If you know, an officer's, the statute of limitations is run, and my kids are now in their 20s, but back when they were in high school, my kids all knew that I had cameras at the house. So, hey, let's go to the O'Day's house for a party. They're away. No, we have cameras. So guess how many parties there were at the O'Day house? 0. So we need to do more to address the juvenile crime in the state. And it's out of hand. Officers, I'm sorry we haven't done more for you in Hartford, but believe me, we're trying. And I will make it a personal mission to be more adamant about advocating for locking your car doors, which again is just beyond my comprehension. And please reach out. I'd love to buy you guys coffee if there's anything else more we can do. But please know we're trying. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions? No, no questions yet, Tom, but we'll be back to you.
I think there also needs to be just a mindset change for people in town, that we don't live in a little bubble as much as we like to think we do. And that's something that needs to be hammered home. I mean, for those of us who lived in New York in our early part of our 20s before we all moved and had families in New Canaan, I don't ever remember not locking anything. I mean, I locked everything when I was living in Manhattan. So what makes me think that I come to New Canaan, all of a sudden, the doors are open, the cars are open? Like, we need to change that mindset.
Agreed. Anything else? Okay. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
all the
you
work.
so much.
No, really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Item B, Chamber of Commerce. Laura Budd, you're up. Hey, Laura,
Hey, how are ya?
our annual meeting.
It's our annual meeting. I'm here to request some street closures for the 3 large public events that the Chamber will be putting on in 2025. We've got sidewalk sale Saturday, July 19th. And so I'm requesting Elm Street and half of Forest Street from you all. And then if you're able to approve, I will go to the state and ask for Main Street from Burtis to East Avenue for that day. We're looking at 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the closure. I hire 3 officers for that. One just stays down on 4th Street so that the residents of the condo there can come in the other way, than they usually do. The next event would be the Halloween block party. It would be Sunday, October 26th. We would request closure from 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Elm Street between Park and Main. I would hire 2 officers. And then the holiday stroll, which would be Friday, December 5th, street closure from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Once again, from Elm between Park and Main. And I think I typically get 2 officers for that. I just want to say that all these events, the town has been so amazing, starting with you all granting the permission. Police, fire, and of course, the Department of Public Works are amazing in making these all happen. And the DPW, really for the past couple of years, they've started placing very large trucks at the intersections just to prevent anything that seems unthinkable, but that the pedestrian areas are safe. So that's my request for 2025.
Okay, any questions for Laura? No, it seems pretty, no, we really appreciate all the efforts that you do at the chamber. So thank you.
Thank you. Takes a
Motion-
village.
Motion to approve, why don't we do these all three at once? The sidewalk sale, the Halloween block party, and the holiday stroll. Motion to approve those,
So moved.
second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Laura, you've got unanimous approval on those three.
Thank you very much. I definitely appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.
Right.
Right.
C, item C, Chief, you're up. 2026 budget review.
Yes, I'm going to share my screen. So we were supposed to have a few more representatives from our Board of Finance and Town Council liaisons.
I see some on.
Some are on, I think, Penny Young is on and Nick is here in person. But this will be recorded. They can review it at their leisure when they have time and have to field any questions from them. But we wanted to present this so we can give some information, answer some questions before we do the full presentation to the Board of Finance next week. And then Town Council in March, later March. So these are the refined numbers from the Board of Selectmen that got forwarded to the Board of Finance. So we'll start with animal control. And this is just a quick summary of some of the calls for service that our animal control handled over the last year. See it. We got some interesting wildlife here in New Canaan. And he does a lot of community awareness type of events. The overall budget for animal control is 95,179. That's a 5.29% reduction from last year. And you can look at the numbers here. We kind of just worked on eliminating a couple of items. Supplies office, which it wasn't necessary. He works with us and in our building, so we share supplies and some postage reduction, some just general housekeeping on a few of those items there. And then we had the biggest item is his salary, but that's a pretty straightforward budget. So if there's any questions on that, we can move forward. Let's see. So for the police department, this is a snapshot of 2024, what we had for calls for service last year, close to 16,000 calls for service, various incidents that we deal with throughout the year, from hazard calls, fraud investigations, stolen vehicle investigations. Some take much longer to investigate, to handle than others. But that's kind of a snapshot of everything that we kind of cover a little bit, which you're well aware of because you see the monthly statistics that we go through later on in the meetings. Some other highlights, we've continued the success with the community impact officers, the school resource officers. We finally were able to implement and get the 3 new officers, the new SROs into the elementary schools this January. And much to the help of our wonderful building committee, the construction project is on time and on budget. And we've got a few pictures here that aren't even up to date since I made these slides. We've got the first layer of pavement down. We actually took a tour with some staff members at the location today, and it's much more finished than this. We were able to kind of show some of our staff what things are going to look like once they get to move in, and the feedback was overall pretty positive. So we are looking to move back sometime in June. We are slated to have our 911 and phone system cut over on June 3rd. That's still on track. We're still having some meetings with our key stakeholders for that. But that so far is going as planned. And you know, I think we're through the worst of it. We spoke with our contractors there today, and they're going to begin the process of switching over power to our full-time power and commission all of the systems and start cleaning up. And then we'll start doing all the soft cost items with moving in furniture and all that good stuff. So things are looking good there. And then there's, you know, obviously some other things that we participate in throughout the year, largely community service oriented and school oriented with our SROs. But that's just a kind of a few snapshots of things that we've done throughout the year. And there's our 3 SROs that are at the elementary schools, keeping those people safe. So I'll jump into the operating summary. So our overall operating budget request is a little over 8 million. It's a 4.93% increase from last year. And I'll show a few slides of the lines, but that's largely explained due to we've added salary increases into our budget, which historically they haven't accounted for. We get our salary lines from finance department, and typically those never included contractual pay raises. Those were just kind of not included, but we've added those since the Board of Selectmen meeting to show what the true cost will be for our full-time salaries. Additionally, we've added back a full-time maintenance person, which we have not had to have since we've been in the temporary facility. So that's going to be a full-time position that we're going to have to add back, and it's a significant salary because it's not just somebody that's going to be coming in sweeping floors. They're going to be a facilities manager. They're going to have to take care of some pretty complex systems. So we had to create a salary that's going to be competitive and attract the right person for that position.
Chief, that's the maintenance person, right? That's 88K.
That's correct. Yeah, that's where I'm.
So what's confusing, this happened in some other departments as well. If you look, it says fiscal 26 proposed 5817, the salaries line. Yeah, right there.
Yes.
And that matches the budget book in the back with the salaries. But then it says fiscal 26 Board of Selectmen recommended 5931.
Correct.
So
So the Board of Selectmen added in the contractual pay raises that I didn't have in my original proposed budget. So the FY26 proposed is the initial numbers that I originally received from the finance department. What the Board of Selectmen asked to show in there as well was at least a 2% raise for all union members in the police department. So that's why that number is higher.
okay, the budget book is out of sync. That's why.
Yes, yeah,
It's like I couldn't tie it. I'm like, last year was fine. This year is off.
yes,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Thank you.
And you can see some other areas that we typically focus on is overtime. But we've kept overtime pretty consistent with years past. We think those are a good number. One caveat, you see a reduction there in the training overtime. That's due to the fact that we moved 65,000 training dollars to a special project account. This was at the request of the Board of Selectmen and the board and the finance department, because we have a one-time, we know we're going to have a one-time significant training cost with our new firearms, which we'll get to in the capital ask. So the new firearms are going to require us to have some significant amount of training, at least 16 hours for each officer. So that was, because that was a one-time expense, we were asked to move that into, take it out of our operating budget and move it into a special operating budget. So that number resides elsewhere in the town budget, but it's just not showing here. So I don't want it to look like we're cutting training overtime. It's just living somewhere else in the town's budget.
So then next year should be this number plus.
Plus, you know, maybe, you know, 2%, whatever our contractual raises are, that sort of thing. So.
Is that the new SIG?
Correct. Smith and Wesson. Yeah. And then some additional reasons for the increase, the 4.93 increase. Service contracts, we did have a service contract that was living in the capital budget for our body cameras, the annual service contract for our body cameras. That was in our capital budget for a couple of years now. And that really should not be a capital purchase. That's an ongoing operating expense. So we added that to service costs, and all the service contracts are increasing dramatically. Many businesses and vendors are just going to service contract models and really finding that that's a way to get some significant revenue for their companies. So a lot of companies we're seeing are going to annual service contract type models. And then the last remaining 4 or 5 items there are the utility costs at the new building. It's an unknown right now. You know, we've been in a temporary building renting. What the electricity and the fuel oil and those sorts of things are going to cost at the new building, we really don't know. These are our best guesses, but obviously they're significantly more than what we're paying now at 39 Locust.
And it's hard to compare prior years in that building.
Right.
Because rates changed and
Yeah,
everything.
rates changed and it's a completely different building. Hopefully much more efficient, but we won't really know until we get there. So that's where we get the last segment there is our total budget costs and where we're at. And that's like I said, a 4.93% increase. Any more questions on that?
I'm good.
So our capital summary is also fairly straightforward. We're asking for, I believe it's what, 3 vehicles, Joe? 3 vehicles this year, and that's the 213.5. We've encapsulated, we used to have, as you can see, equipment for new vehicles and vehicle changeover costs as separate lines. We were asked by Finance Department to include those all into one line because those should all be bonded together rather than separating them out, tax supported versus bonded. The entire cost of equipping and outfitting a vehicle should be bonded together in one line item. So that's why you can see the equipment for the new vehicles and the vehicle changeover costs is zeroed out, and all those costs are in one line. And that was at the request of our CFO. So
My question is not for that. I think you're going to question the same thing. Why are we bonding? This is part of our 20-year bond? For cars?
that's a question for Ann. I
Yeah,
don't know.
and this is just, I can't bond it.
Well, one of the things she was explaining, it had to do too with it, identifying it as an asset and what they can do. So she was explaining, the way I understood it was, instead of saying, you know, we're spending money on a car, spending money on lights, we're spending money on sirens. That car, what does it cost for lights, sirens, decals? And that one thing's now an asset. So for their auditing purposes and things like that.
That part I get, but just financing of it, I just don't know. I guess.
Yeah, the 20-year bonding doesn't make sense, but
I don't know
from
if that's what it is.
a finance perspective, anything over 50K is capitalized,
Over 50,
right.
it's about 7.
Yeah, so in my mind, corporate versus municipal, anything over 50 is bonded, anything under 50 is operating expense.
Right.
And so it makes sense for it to be bonded, but then we're gonna talk to Ann and say,
What's the length of the?
what's the length? It should be 5 years, I think, with vehicles.
I don't know when they package it, so to say that's not our deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's not
ask-
our purview,
We'll ask next week.
Well, that's
but if you all can ask that, that'd be great.
The other thing,
By the way, we do need them,
yes, yes, we're in good shape. We
but we
We
don't
were
want to get
fortunate-
behind again.
No,
Right.
and I've explained previously that, it was a year or so ago, we finally caught up. We had a year where we finally caught up with some post-COVID, post-supply chain issues. And we got about 7 or 8 vehicles in 1 year, which put us in a good position last year where we only needed 1 vehicle, which was an animal control vehicle. And then this year, we're going to get back on our cycle of cycling out the olds, move them down into our lesser need of a fleet. So we have our frontline patrol vehicles, then kind of our secondary vehicles, vehicles that the SROs take to the schools and just park in front of the schools. The ones that are used for training purposes and that sort of thing that aren't our frontline vehicles. So we do try to get as much use out of these vehicles as we can. If there's any residual value remaining, we'll offer them to any other departments in town after that, or we trade them in. So we do try to capitalize and get the most bang for our buck out of the vehicles as we can.
How long do you keep them?
It's typically around 80,000 miles is when we start to take them off of the frontline patrol use and repurpose them. That's typically where the number of miles where it starts to show enough wear and tear that we pull them from the front line.
How much do you put on per year on average?
It
It's hard to
varies.
say. And the other thing is the runtime. So they sit idle, just idling for hours and hours. So that puts a lot of wear and tear and beating on the engines. But
I would say it's probably 15 to 20thousand miles a year.
yeah, that's about right.
average.
Yeah.
It's different use, right? The fire guys, it's 20 years. Is their useful life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's.
Yeah. Well, they go on 1,200 calls a year.
I mean, they're replacing something from 2002 right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Right, but as Joe said, these vehicles, the frontline vehicles run all day long.
Very, very
24
different
hours. It's
vehicles,
a different, so the engine's got 200,000 miles on it in terms of
Yeah,
usage.
I don't want to speak for Aldi, but those fire trucks, they order them now and they don't get them for 2 or 3 years and they're a couple 100,000 a piece, or if not more. And it's apples to oranges. It's very, very different. But moving down, the other items are typical capital items: bulletproof replacements, radio replacements, taser replacements, mobile data terminals, which are the computers in the cars. The next big item is our duty firearm replacement. We are due to cycle out our old firearms and replace them with these new ones. We started the process last year. We bought 10 in FY25. We are looking at the remaining amount in FY26, which is where the 60,000 comes in. And then just further down, again, equipment that runs its end of life: defibrillators, body cameras, in-car cameras. New vehicles need to be replaced with some of those items. So those are kind of standard items that we see year to year that aren't significant changes from years past.
Do you change bulletproof vests annually?
They have a 5-year lifespan, so
It's like
we have everybody on different cycles. So after 5 years, they're not voided out, but the manufacturers recommend replacing them after 5 years.
So I saw the 10K.
Yeah, and we do have some grant money available that we get, I think 50% for the reimbursement for the vest replacement. So we do work with with some grant money on the bulletproof vest replacements.
Okay.
We've had a number of new hires too. So that's.
Yeah, and they're kind of custom fit. It's not one size fits all. So it's kind of individualized to each officer. And they're close to what, $1,000 now, $1,200?
No, they're about over 1,500
Are they?
a unit. Yeah. Yeah. So if we can get, 50% reimbursement on that, that's great. But right now the grant money's dried up, so we have to get more. But like the chief said, just depends on the cycles. I think this past year we might have replaced 5, but the year before that we're more like 8 officers. So it just depends how it goes.
So that's our total capital ask is $359,100. Other than that, Is there any other questions on that?
Great. Thank you, Chief. Onward to approval of uniform clothing invoices. Y'all gone through those.
Yeah.
Any questions on the invoices?
None here.
No,
No. Jennifer, just to identify these, just as the invoices that we approved for this meeting is adequate, I think. Motion to approve.
so moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then building update, if there's any additions for the update on the buildings?
The building?
You're in the committee as well. I don't,
Now I second what the chief said last time. It's on track, under budget, ahead of schedule. I'm gonna go visit the next few weeks again.
Yeah.
Looks great.
Yeah, we were there today and it's looking great. It's very, very nice. We've got a lot of positive feedback, some useful feedback from officers, just little kind of things that you want to do now, little punch list things like, that we got some good feedback on and it's looking great there.
would it be helpful to, not to have people come over, not to have everybody come over monthly or weekly, but monthly maybe, just to do sort of a drive-by like that? Does that help?
I think we're there, I don't
Yeah.
think,
Or you all can do it too.
yeah.
The three of you can do it.
Yeah, I don't want to keep getting in their way to finish up, so,
Right.
but,
But if something's glaring, like we saw some doors that needed some glass in them, so the little, just little things.
you saw some doors.
I saw.
People that work in those offices didn't, but whatever. They're good. It's all good.
And they're the ones working in them, so I.
You'll be happy to know the ceiling height in the gym is perfectly
That's
fine.
key.
You should go check that out.
I was down there
It
a
looks
couple
very
weeks ago.
nice.
Yeah.
But no, we'll, if there's anything appropriate, we'll encourage people to go over and check it out and kind of monitor. That was kind of the purpose, because we took our records people and our evidence people there today and so we could get some feedback from them. So we'll encourage our people to swing by there and go through once in a while.
Okay, and we're still, on my other favorite topic is the range. We're working with,
That's still on the table, a regional range facility in Newtown.
right,
And we're still looking for additional funding from the state on that to lower the cost. And still waiting to hear back. I think, I believe Deanna's worked with Westcog and
Right.
attended the meetings with Westcog and so that's still yet to be determined.
monthly reports.
Okay, I'll go through these quickly. It's been a long meeting so far, but year-to-date budget so far. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Overall budget, we're at 57.9%, which is kind of where we should be at for basically halfway through, a little more than halfway through our budget year. So we're looking okay in that area. Obviously we're keeping a close eye on our high ticket items over time, but so far overall, we're looking pretty good. Likewise, animal control is 54.3, so his budget's looking on track. Monthly statistics, not too much is jumping out at me. False alarms look like they've year-to-date reduced a little bit. It was at 81 last year. For January this year, we're at 50, but hopefully that'll start trending in that direction. That'll be nice. Motor vehicle stops are increasing nicely. We were at 258 last year. We're at 456, so that's good. Our officers are active and visible out there, and hopefully that'll help curb some of this crime coming into town. Other than that, everything.
Chief, I think there's a mistake on the, if I'm reading this correctly, stolen vehicle, the total for the year in the right-hand column for 2024, it looks like the number for month to date got plugged in there.
So that's not the
Three.
total of the year. So that was, what you're looking at is year-to-date 2024. So that was just the month of January.
Oh, I see.
month of January in 2024
Yeah,
versus the month of January. That third column and the sixth column is a year to date,
Yeah.
which as of now is just 1 month.
is 1 month.
So
But I thought, maybe I'm wrong. I thought we showed, I guess I am wrong. I thought we showed an annual
we,
total.
we did last month because that was the end of the year.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why it looked like the whole
Yeah,
year. So we don't show a
Okay,
full year. Well, it will be the year to date. That's
Right,
what
right.
it shows up as.
Okay.
Staffing report, we worked January 57.45% of the time at minimum shift, which not unusual for January, but and that's, trending downward, which we like to see, so, but not unusual that December is higher when more people are off.
Sorry, Chief, I just want to go back to
Yeah.
that, what Jim was on. Would it be helpful to show a running 12-month column there someplace?
I don't know if this report generates that.
It doesn't, no.
It generates a year to date, so
So
that's,
January, whatever January.
yeah, this
We'd
report
have to figure, we'd have to manually put it in.
would be another, yeah.
Well, let me think about that. Okay.
Yeah, I think.
I know what you mean, right? Because you, like, normally you look at numbers 12 months, well,
Yeah.
12 months.
Yeah.
As opposed to just-
Yeah, this report doesn't have the ability to generate that column, and quite honestly, there'll be a lot of work for Jennifer to do, so please don't do that. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Chief, listen.
We could do it, but
No, no,
it's just,
but we kind
yeah.
of know what the number is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Hopefully the number will be down when the stolen vehicle.
yes.
Yes.
False alarm, like last month, that's pretty good. If you're looking at the 1 to 30, 30 to 60, and 60 to 1 to 90, that number's pretty low. We've got some over 120 balances that I think are gonna have to be write-offs, because I think probably most of those people don't even live in town anymore, so.
Yeah.
That number is getting consistently better. And extra duty aging, some of our big hitters, Burns Construction, Tinker and Penna, Tiger has been reaching out to them. He copied me on some emails as recently as last week, and he's encouraging them to pay their outstanding balances, so hopefully.
Part of what? Was that part of the water?
I think so.
I know, because it's massive. I mean,
Yeah, they are, and Burns is pretty high. So, and I know Tiger's got a relationship with them and reached out to them, and they've assured us that they're gonna get that corrected, but that is a significant amount that's hanging out there.
Almost $300,000.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of those are over 120 days, balances that they're carrying. So that's something that we need to stay on top of, and Tiger's doing a good job on that. Much appreciated. That's all I have for reports.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't have anything for executive session. Nope. Okay. And motion, anything else? Any new business?
I just would mention that
Oh, yes.
Sergeant O'Sullivan was honored a couple of weeks ago at a big dinner in New York, sponsored by the Irish Echo, which is a 100-year-old newspaper that caters to the Irish diaspora. And it was a very big affair, 300 people. They honored various law enforcement personnel from New York, New Jersey. There was one fellow from Delaware and one from Connecticut, which was our own Michael O'Sullivan. So it was a great affair. Lieutenant DeFelice was there, Sergeant Sprosta, Sergeant Mitchell, Sergeant Condos, and Detective Patton. So it was a great night and Michael's whole family was there and it was really a very well deserved. It was sponsored, James O'Hora, one of our citizens in town, had sponsored him for it and they selected him. So anyway, it was a nice recognition.
Very nice and very well deserving. Mike does a great job.
Yes.
And then there was an email Officer of the Year award. Not in this
That's,
packet.
yeah, that was just decided today.
Just went out.
Just went out today. Officer Jeff Pollock was nominated and selected as Officer of the Year, and we'll celebrate him at a upcoming ceremony.
Anything else? Anything else? All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 7 o'clock.